Alright, for those of you uninitiated, this is a Premier Royal Ace snare drum made sometime in the 1960s in England, and they're pretty popular today because, well, for starters, they're Premier. A lot of people out there who are pretty excited about anything Premier. But secondly, they're all birch shells, and for me, I think that's why I love this snare drum, is it's just configured nicely with a few thin plies of birch and some big thick Rio hoops, and it just sounds cool. But as with a lot of old snare drums, the throw-off mechanism and the snare strainer and stuff is a bit of a headache. So if we flip it over and have a look at what's going on under here, you can see these snares are pretty stuffed, and they've got their own unique system of mounting snares, and so you've got to have the right hooks on them and stuff to actually get them to sit properly, to get them to connect. And of course you can't buy these anymore, or if you can, it's some bloke somewhere making them special and is charging you a good dollar for his time. So I'm going to show you some info that I went looking for, I couldn't find, and that is how to just fit your standard wires. Alright, yep, your standard snare wires on to this drum, even though it doesn't look like we've got the means to do so. Alright, so I've just slackened the strainer right off and unhooked the snares from the bar, and that's what they look like, just hooks on the ends like that. And so we've got to work out a way to get a string around that and onto our snares. And I've tried this for quite a while the other night, just trying to tie a string around the bar here. Sorry, try to get the camera in a good spot. So I was trying to poke this in around there and tie it off, and then of course you got to, you know, put your string through the holes here, and then you got the other side to work with, and then with everything attached and with one end already tied on, you're trying to get the other end in down here, and then you're trying to tie it off at a point where you know, you've got your snare wires close enough down here that by the time you tension everything up, they're not sitting on the bearing edge, they're sitting out from the bearing edge like that, and it's like that at both ends. Alright, so it's a really fiddly operation. Now, in the light of day today, I've gone, oh you idiot, look, have a look here. What do we got there? Yep, it's a screw head. Alright, if you have a look in here, there's a little screw thread in there. Alright, that means that bar should just unscrew. Now here's the thing. Don't just grab the first flat object you find that you think is going to fit in that screw head, because you will strip it out, and you don't want to be that guy who wrecked that vintage snare drum part by stripping it out and being lazy, not getting a proper screwdriver. So please go out to the shed and find the right screwdriver to fit. Alright, and then apply the appropriate amount of tension, force to keep it seated in the screw while you unwind it, so you don't go burring that screw over. Alright, now being a vintage thing, and it probably hasn't been undone in decades, so go easy, use a bit of CRC if you need to, and just go about loosening that off gently. It should just come easily. Alright, and it doesn't have a lot of thread on it, so it only takes a few rotations before that'll come out like that. Now I'm thinking, if I remove this bar first and then go tying my string around it, creating the knots and stuff, I can then slip the bar out from the knots, alright, and then slip the bar back in through the knots as I put it back in, and Bob's your uncle. So that's my plan. See how we go. By the way, I'll mention at this point, I did go to the music store and spend out a little bit on getting some proper snare cord. I read some forums where people are recommending using blind cord, you know, the stuff that makes your horizontal blinds go up and down. I wasn't comfortable with that because I don't know that it's engineered for the purpose, and I'm not comfortable with the idea of you know, something that's under engineered wearing away and then halfway through a gig snapping just because I was too cheap to go out and spend a few bucks on the proper stuff. So I'm going with this Gibraltar snare cord. Alright, and I've got quite a few pieces there for my $7.50 as opposed to the stuff I originally thought I'd cheap out with, which looks a bit more like a really thin shoelace. I don't know what it is, it came out of the wife's sewing cabinet. Feels like a waxed cotton type thing, and yeah, it just didn't sit right with me. I thought, yeah, for the sake of a few dollars, I'd rather be confident that it's just not going to go snap halfway through the gig. So there's the setup as it stands at the moment. So I've just gone around that rod. I've tied it off in a reef knot. Now, if you're unfamiliar with your knots, go and look up how to tie a reef knot. Find that reef knot's best for nylon cord, as it tightens against itself really nicely. It won't give you any slip. Okay, and I've gone under the end of the butt of the snares, and then up over the top, down through and underneath again, and then back with another reef knot. Okay, so the plan here is to slide that bolt out. I'm trying to film and do this at the same time. Slide that off like that, and I'm left with a couple of loops. Alright, and that should be easier to slide this bolt back in position through the loops than to try tying this on in the first place. Alright, looks like things are lining up quite nicely here. I don't think this will be too hard, but if you want, maybe grab yourself a pair of tweezers so you can pick that twine up and get it in the right place. A little bit fiddly. We should be able to just push them onto the bolt, slide it through. There probably isn't really any need to do that cord up quite so tightly around the bolt. In retrospect, I might have made those loops a little looser to make this part a bit easier. But I'll tell you what, this is still way easier than trying to tie a cord around the bolt with the bolt stuck in this housing. There we go, got one on. Alright, push this through. Let's get the other one on. Nearly there. Yep, there she is. Alright, now I've reached the point on the bolt where the thread's starting to interfere. So I'm going to get the screwdriver on here and just position the bolt so it's in line with the hole on the other side of the housing. And make sure I'm not cross-threading as I'm finding the thread. And now as it's starting to get close, I'm just going to push that so it's lining up the hole. And it goes. Well, I'll tell you right now, that was a lot easier than what I was doing before. Alright, it's looking like it's spaced quite nicely. By the time I put a bit of tension on the thumb screw back here and pull that out from the rim a little bit, I think that's going to be sitting quite nicely on the head. You see as I do up the thumb screw here, it's going to start to pull out from the rim a bit like that as it tightens. Alright, and then we should have that sitting in about the right place. I've still got a bit of room to go on that as well. That'll actually wind out a bit further, so I'm pretty happy with that. Let's do the other side. Now I'm just noticing I've got stacks of cord left over here. There's probably enough cord there that I could use the other half of this one strand of cord to do the other side. Yep, ladies and gentlemen, that's how cheap I am. I reckon I could get 2 out of that. I'm going to give it a crack. Alright, so I've indeed just cut the cord in half, and there's my excess there. There's plenty to play with. Now you may not know this, but here's a neat little trick for just stopping the end from fraying off on nylon. You grab a lighter or a matchstick or something and just give the end a little bit of a melt. Alright, my little fibres melt together and they're not going to come undone now. Crikey, these matchsticks are ridiculous. How big are they these days? Huh? That's what you call a match. Check it out. Huge. Very good. No fraying there anymore. Nicely sealed off. Alright, so this is the other end. I've got those tied on there. I'm just going to do the same thing and slip this bolt out. Alright, and then we're going to do the same process of popping the bolt back in. Alright, and then slipping it through the rope. Okay, we're on. We're all tightened up, but I'll tell you what, I had to put those thumb screws on pretty much full extension to get the right tension here. So I'm not real happy with that. I would prefer to have tried to get the strings a little shorter, so I've got a bit more range in those screws. So at some point I'm likely going to have to probably undo this end and have another go. But hey, for now, that's sitting pretty sweet. Alright, it's pretty close this end, but it's actually just a bit of clearance there from, sorry that's blurry, a bit of clearance from the bearing edge, and I'm okay with that. So this side here, the string needs to be a bit shorter. But hey, I got away with using one piece of cord, alright. So for all you tight asses out there, you can do it with one piece of cord and you know, save yourself what, 50 cents or something. There you go, ready to play. That is how you put on a set of standard wires onto a Premier Royal Ace drum. Now one more thing I'll mention, I did see somewhere someone on a thread advised that it's best not to use metal wire and not to use anything metallic over the top of your bearing edge because it's likely it's going to damage it. So I thought that's pretty sensible to avoid that. So yeah, definitely get down to your music store, support your local store, and buy some snare cord for the job. Alright, cheers, good luck.